वेलकम जी. Let's start. So, आज I am going to talk on the optional. This feature as a Java language is introduced as a part of JDK 8, and sometime this optional help us to avoiding some kind of exception and error. So let us discuss in a both way. First, we have to also discuss what is the theoretical, and also we have to write some sample code which help us to understand how we can use this optional. Okay, so from theoretical perspective, as you know, optional is the class, and that is the java.util.package, and this class support the generic means that means you can pass the any types of value. So first things, class generally two kind of class in generally in the Java we can create. One is the utility class. That class generally uh, have some set of utility method which we can invoke. And another kind of class like a data holding class, a class that can have some state. So this container optional class is come under the second types. That it means this is the class is a container that hold object. Means कि whenever you are creating optional class, that means they are is the container where you can store some value, and that will take memory. So by default, this optional class minimum have some required some memory space. Okay, so please be ensure that whenever you are going to use optional class is a container class that required a memory to store value. What kind of value they are going to store? The object which may or may not exist, that contain a non-null value. So if we are creating any optional object and here you want to store some value, so that value must be non-null value. Which types of t. So this is the basic about the optional as a class. So optional is a one class that hold value and value of a type t, and ensure that this value of a type t should be non-null. That means you can say might be you can hold value or might be hold value or might be not hold value. So primarily, what is the purpose? So the optional is primarily intended for use of the method return types. So generally this class like optional we are going to use as a return types of a particular method. Okay, this is the basic purpose, and not all the method return types. Where there is a clear needed to represent no results, and where using null is likely to cause the error. That means in those cases we are going to change the method return types from a specific string or a specific value to optional, that is the container that hold value or cannot hold value, so that we can avoid unnecessary null pointer exception. So please note this is optional class is designed for a specific purpose where your methods invoke from the stream or pipelines might be cause null pointer exception. So in those cases we have to use as a method return types optional. Okay, this is the basic about this. So next question, uh, again this API as a optional class is like a wrapper class. That means just is a one wrapper class for holding some specific types of value. That is the non-null reference of T types. So generally I say in a Java there are two kind of object or class. One object have a one class have some state, another class does not have any state. So this optional class is the class which have a state. The possibly two state. One state is a present state, another is the absent state. Present means the types of t value must exist. That means ki null of type t value. Second is the absent, means ki there is a no value exist for the type t. So please be ensure that optional class, whenever you create object that have a two possible state, one is present, that means the value have of type t, that is the must be not null, and second absent, that means is empty. So question is how we can create the optional class object. Surely there are multiple methods available where we can create optional class. The basic optional.empty, they create the object of optional class. Second, optional.off, that means you have to specify the non-null element. They create the optional object. And even sometime you can create optional using the off nullable object. So there are three way you can create optional object using the empty method or off method or non-nullable. So instead of going to deep dive about the list of methods and API, so let's jump to the code and create some use case and optional classes. Like here, jump. So here I'm going to set take simple example. Let's give we have a like list of customer or list of customers. So first we have to create one pojo. Like you can use class or you can use record. There is a not make any sense, but you can use. I'm using the record classes customer, and generally let's give we have a one ID field and a string name field, and let's age field. Why I'm using record? Record is a simple, concise way to creating any Pojo data classes here. Now there is no need of any specific like setter, getter, all the methods. We just record. So now let's I create the some list of list list of let's new customer, let's key your ID 101, let's name John, let's age 45. Okay, let's create some more like so let's 102, 103, 104, 105. Let's name Smith, let's Mary, let's Tim, let's Mike. Okay, so these are, and there's a different age, like might be 60, 55, might be 40, might be 50, might be 51. Okay, and we have now customers. So let us we have a list of customer. Now we have right, let's method like a static let's want to return the customer name. Yeah, get customer name. Customer name, this is the word function that input list of customer list, and let's they pass like your ID. So specific ID I want to this method return the list of customer. So here like let's get customer pass your customer list, and I want to uh, list ID 10n. So here you can see write a separate method like customer get customers. Okay, that would be good separate method, and this return customer here say static. So I'm just created one methods which get data. So here you can say get customer data. Okay, so from this customer, just I want to name of the customer, which is the ID 101. Okay, customer name, and just I want to print. So here how I am going to find out the customer name using the ID. So okay, we have a list, then a stream, and after the streaming we can say dot fil filter whatever the customer dot your ID double equal to ID. If this ID match, then we have to use the find first method. So whenever you name, if this ID is matched, let's I say another case. Here I say ID 109 might be. So in the case of when ID exists, we can find the customer and return the customer. In the case of ID not exists, then what we returns? So this is the situation where we have to now here filter. After filter, they return some value. If not found, that they not return any value. So what I am going to return here? Customer. Okay. So here the find first methods are returns optional of your customer. That means might be case if your ID match, then this optional contain the customer. If ID not match, then this optional does not hold the customer. So here question how you can so say you can say like return question how to get for the name of from optional. The optional is the object, then this should be optional customer, good name. So optional customer dot you can say get is the function which return your names, which returns you. Okay, this get customer and customer dot you can get name. So here we are getting the customer name and returning to the here. So if in the case of 101 data find, we find the optional customer and optional customer get the name, there is no any problem. But what happened in the case of customer not found? So in this case, what the name we are going to return? Surely we are getting some exception. So here getting no such element. So one things whenever you are getting optional object, here you have to check the particular value exists or not. So instead of writing say, you can say if optional dot is value present, then you can say return data. Else what to do? you return maybe unknown, unknown name, or you can say anything. So this is the way generally. Now whenever you have a optional object, first before getting the value you have to check the particular optional hold the value or not. So if you run, now we are able to get, we're not getting any kind of a no such value present, but you can say the proper first your case of 101 you get the zone, second you can say unknown, this is no found. So this is the one way where we can use this optional methods. Why this function return optional? Because this is the conditions. Might be case here sometime we can write code directly instead of here. Might be case we wrote writing code like did after that. So this is the one. So instead of using, this is the one way where we can use get method. So this is the one two method we have used the, as mentioned. This is the method get and is present. So instead of if and else, this is the one method directly you can say just comment out and simply say return customer, optional customer, else or else. And here you can pass your default customer, like default customer you can say new your customer, and let's kid 0 comma whatever the you have value unknown, and after that you can say get name. So in this way you can say we have if our optional contain the value, then return the contain name, else return the default one. So in this way also we can use the or else method, which give you the else part. Instead of this checking is present, this is the is present, and then unknown, then unknown. So you can say one line statement like or else what is the default value if the particular optional object not holding the value. Even sometime I want to give some specific value, sometime I want to throw some exceptions or something. Even you can use the different function like here get generally if get only directly use if you ensure that this optional container have a actual value, then you can use get. Might be because the option have a two state, one state can have a value, one state empty. So in this case if empty, if you say get, you are getting exception no data available. So please ensure this is the function say is present. Is present tell you your optional have a data or is empty. The same thing you can say or else means ki if you found data, give me the data, else what would be the default value. Or similarly you can use this function orElseGet or orElseThrow exception. That's why I want to throw some exception instead of giving some unknown value. So here you can use this function. This optional classes also have a very interesting feature in like this the three method which you can use like stream, filter, map and flatMap. Look like a stream API optional class also help you to do some function. So here let's write the same code. Instead of this just comment out completely and just write in this way. Let's we have to say return And let's say now we have a list dot stream and dot you can just filter as use dot filter and whatever the customer dot id match with your id. Okay, and get first. And after that, see here you can use a function like map, and you say I want to customer name and just say get. You are getting. So this is the very concise way of using this function, and just run it. Okay, so here again issue, whenever you map function you are getting name. In the case of not, then you are getting again exception, no such value. So this get function always be ensure that you are getting the. So this is the case where generally we are trying to use the optional classes, because this is a pipeline. They know something, they return, they know, they return, they know, they returns. So this optional say कि might be you are getting null, or you are getting the value, or you are getting the nothing empty. So before invoking get, you have to ensure that you are using like a if present. So here I'm trying to say this optional class also give you the function like a map, like a filter, and then get. Right? So please ensure that before you are going to get, you have to ensure that you have to check is present or not. So here you can say like map, and even you can filter. Let's like you have a filter, again filter whatever the customer uh, whatever the s dot, let's length greater than, that's greater than 2, yeah, greater than 3, and here you can say so you are getting the optional of optional name, and here say again if return optional dot or else no. So in this way you are so let's run it. So generally you can say key optionals are used in the case of any method chaining where you are getting. So here you notice you are getting the John. Let's length 3 greater than 3. I am say if let's if less than 3, then you are not getting even this value John. So here optional class you are not getting any John value. That means here uh, here you have a list of item, then a stream of customer, then you filter. I want to only those customer which the particular id match. If match, so there are two possibility, id matched or not. If match, then you are getting one optional object, and this optional two possibility, you have value or you don't have value. And this optional class also have a function like map and filter. If you want to some additional like here, what why I'm saying map, because I want to only the name, and after that I want to say name length less than 3 or greater than 2 or greater than 5, any condition filter you can again apply. So here you can try, I'm trying to say your optional class also have a filter, map, these functions where you can use. Run it. So these are the helping classes, you can say. Optional class help us to avoid the kind of a uh, null pointer exception in the case of a pipeline, in the case of stream API. So here we have a customer passing the different ID, and we are getting the this way. So these are some steps set of API you can use. Please ensure that get API whenever you are invoking might be case your optional sometime have value, present value, have absent value. In the case of present, they return value. In the case of absent, they throw exception. So how before getting, please ensure that you can use your is present. And if is present, you are getting value. Else, you can give the different value. Similarly, you can use a filter, map, and flatMap on your optional classes. So please note that if this is the optional class, so if you want to storing the instance of optional class, like in the case of fill or in the collections or in a map or even a method argument, so this optional class or API is not designed or created for such use case. So please don't use, not design optional class for this. So optional class is just used as a method return types in the case where those method might be break your uh, stream pipeline or might be some null point exception where you can avoid. So these are the some basic rules you have to remember for the if you are using the optional. Okay, so ensure that optional class are this is the one first things, this is the optional class is the container which have a state, that state might be present or might be absent. Whenever any object have a state, that means they take your memory space. By default, they are getting a 60 byte, and please ensure that until really needed, then use else. Simple use if and else, because this will consume your memory. Because this is a wrapper class, whatever the you value get on those value, you can get this. Value and additional one object created for just representing the value found or value not found. So here say कि never use null for optional value. So here someone trying to create optional for null. Let's here and see here say like optional have some factory method like off. Okay, off off. Here you can let's say here I'm like a string let's data have a data. If you have a data, then you can say we have a data. Data. So now you have a you created optional. So first things, whenever you are going to create your factory method using of, this value must be ensure your not null. So let us example another. Instead of this, I am going to create the like let's data 2. Here let's key I pass null. Let's assume, and I want to create data 2. Okay, let's data 2. So here you notice uh, might be initial. Let's say initial give some value like ABC, and here say we see 2 equal to null. Data 2. Okay. 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 Confusion. So whenever you are going to create object of optional using the null value, so you are get in trouble, or you cannot create the optional object, because this of is designed, you always pass null, not null. You are getting the null pointer exceptions while creating of. So we can avoid using creating optional class for the null value. So you cannot say here. But sometime you have another options. You won't need optional. So you have optional dot. You can say of nullable, and here you can say data 2. Then you can create your optional object. Here you can say optional data 1. So please, sometime if you need it, then you can use of nullable, else please avoid using the null value. The first factory method of your like off, and similarly off nullable, or sometime you can create like I want two state of your object class. One is the present create using the off, yeah, off nullable. Second, your optional have like a empty method where you can create your empty optional classes. So that this indicate that your object of optional class is no value, means absent, no value, simply. So these are some factory method like off and nullable or empty. So please do not use null value as a optional field. Okay, and similarly, please never call like or else through or get unless you are sure optional is not empty. That means whenever you are going to any get function or else throw function, before that you have to ensure that your optional container hold value. If they are not hold value, this will throw exception. The best option, prefer alternative, first invoke the is present or else throw and then get. So these are the some alternative. And also do not create optional to avoid testing of the nullability reference. Or similarly, as mentioned, you also do not use, like mentioned, do not use the optional as like a field member, as a parameter, as a collections, or in a map. Please don't use optional. Optional is not designed for such cases. Even don't use the identity sensitive operations like a optional object such as a equality, identity, hash code, or synchronization. You don't forget the optional objects are not serializable. So these are the some rules. Please be care whenever you are going to use this optional class. So optional, in short, you can say generally optional is a class which is designed for a method which return type can be optional, and those return types generally to avoid unnecessary null pointer exception, so that you can return instead of value return the container. So only optional is a one container that can hold any t types of value. So instead of returning directly null, you can say I am returning this container, optional container. Optional might be have a value or might be don't have a value. So might be present value or might be absent value. If present, then follow this route. If absent, then follow this route. So generally, these optionals are used in the case of like a pipeline. You can create a stream. After a stream, you say filter, filter after map, and you want to return the value. So might be here after filtering you are getting value or not. If you are from filter, you are not getting null value here. You are getting null pointer exception. From here, you can get a null pointer exception. So generally, in the case of stream API, when you are at the terminal function like find any find first, those are returned by optional as a data. So please optional class is not so generic, so that key means this is designed for method return types, so you can go and declare all the methods returns with your return type as an optional, because optional container is the container that consumes some memory. So unnecessary your application can consume lots of memory. Each places you are going to use the optional. Please note that optional container is not the replacement or solution for the null pointer exception. All the places of null pointer exception we cannot solve using the your optional of type T. Optional of type T is helping to avoid null pointer exception in some specific situation and cases where we have a filtering something, you want to searching something, and the search result can be found and can be not found. So in those methods which are returning value on the basis of some filter criteria, those method return type can be wrapper of your data type T, that wrapper known as your optional. So please try to ensure that optionals is not designed for solve all the null pointer exceptions. No, optional is designed for a specific purpose. Generally, in the case of search API or filter API or find API, where you are returning value at that type return value, this value returns whatever the value returns, that can be used inside the pipeline. Inside the pipeline, if your value return null, might be your pipeline can break. So those breakages we can avoid. Instead of returning flat T value, you can just wrap in the optional and return optional, so that the filter API, map API automatic manage. Okay, you are getting optional, then we have to check is present value or is not present value. So java.util.Optional for the type T references is designed for a specific purpose. This is not a generic class where you can going to use and avoid all the null pointer exception. Sometime as a developer we are confused because the optional class help us to avoid null pointer exception. So each places I am going to use the optional classes. Unnecessary your processing time increase, unnecessary your memory footprint increase due to this optional class, because optional is a container that have a state. So please be ensure that before using optional classes. The generally recommendation, rec- op- optional class use those method return types where you are writing your method should be like get data by name or by filter, yeah, by type, yeah, search API look like. Hope this information help us. Uh, it will be helpful whenever you are writing code. Please be aware these are the basic rules of your optional classes. Hope this information is helpful for you. And from this note, I would like to say thank you for watching this video.